It's now been 2 days with the Canon R5, and there's some more quirks and things that I've spotted and discovered as I've been using it. And some people think I hate this camera. I don't hate this camera. I actually really like it for photography, as most people like it for photography. But as you can tell by the microphone on top, I also like to shoot video from time to time, and so I have some issues there as well. The overheating is one of them, but it's not anything I'm going to harp on. We all know this camera has its limitations. There's workarounds for sure. You can shoot in crop modes, you can shoot in reduce modes. That's not what I'm here to talk about. First of all, I would like to say that the autofocus continues to impress me. The autofocus on this camera works really, really well. And the fact that you can shoot in ways in which I've never shot before, because there's some moves that I just wouldn't do because they're just too challenging with manual focus. But the fact that you can push closer and pull back and have your subject moving and tracking and doing all this stuff, a lot of movement. That's what video is. It's moving pictures. So having more movement in your images, especially with the IBIS, the stabilization, you combine that with some slow frame rates. Now you have autofocus tracking, doing some amazing stuff that would be very, very challenging to do as a single operator. And the camera's doing it for you, tracking autofocus. It's fantastic. It changes the way you shoot and what you're able to capture in a very meaningful way. It's a feature that a lot of people say, we don't need it. You know, you can do manual focus. And that's true. I've been doing manual focus. We've all been doing manual focus for video for quite some time. Whether you're shooting films or music videos, documentaries, weddings, whatever, we've all been dealing with manual focus. But now we're at the point where Sony and Canon are delivering meaningful autofocus systems that work, and they work reliably well. Maybe not 100%, because there's no way the system could always predict exactly what you want in focus, and sometimes it does get confused here or there, but when it does, it immediately figures it out and gets it back on track. So I would say, in my experience from what I've been doing, it's pretty much 95% accurate of everything I would want it to be. And there's only about a 5% margin of error there, which is really, really impressive. And it just unlocks the potential to be able to do really cool camera moves and maneuvers. I still need to go through all this footage and edit it into something meaningful, so we're not going to look at any pictures or have any videos. You just have to take my word for it. But hopefully this kind of reiterates what a lot of other people have been saying and alluding to, and it's something that I'm going to be very sad to give up with this camera. And again, the reason I'm so disappointed in the R5 and the R6 is because these cameras could have been fantastic. But there's a few other things on the video side that are just kind of minor gripes, nitpicks, things that I think aren't as optimized as they should be. And one of them is specifically when you're shooting video. Other cameras, specifically like the Lumix cameras, there are photo video hybrids as well, so I think it's equally, you should be able to compare them. But Lumix cameras tend to give you a lot more of like the video functionality right at your fingertips. When you're shooting video, you're not picking all your settings and locking in and recording. You sometimes want to change things on the fly, like white balance, which so far I haven't been able to figure out how to change white balance during recording. It seems to be locked out. A lot of the system display too, it'll disappear during recording. And you have to flip through a couple different screens to finally get to your audio meters, but they're also not there in, your regular live view. You basically have to go to the blackout mode, and then, you can see you got audio meters, but they're not there when you're just shooting video. So there's some just accessibility things with this camera that maybe I have to play with the menus more. Maybe I really have to optimize it, but at least out of the box and at first glance after 2 days, there's some stuff that I'm like, where are my audio meters? How come I can't change the white balance? Why is this not giving me the information I need to know? How about, for example, the fact that when you're recording video, it doesn't tell you how much time you have remaining left on the card. This is something I use all the time on the Lumix cameras to know, hey, when is it a good time to change cards? This is common in photography. It tells you how many photos you've taken and how many are remaining. It might not even tell you how many you've taken. It tells you how many are remaining, because that's the most important thing, right? When do I need to switch cards? The R5, as far as I can tell, only tells me when the clip is going to stop recording because it hits the 30-minute timer, which is ridiculous that that's still a thing. But yes, it will tell you when you're going to get to 30 minutes, and it counts up. So it tells you basically how long you've been recording. And then once you hit 30, warning, 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 video has been stopped. And then you just have to push record again to re-engage it. Or it tells you the expected record time if you're in a mode that's likely going to overheat. So many times when I put this camera into 4K 120, it'll say, hey, you can record for about 5 minutes, and that'll be the timer. But in none of these modes does it tell me how much time I have remaining on the card. So, when you're shooting on the fly throughout the day and you want to know, oh, is it, do I need to switch cards? Am my card getting full? Am I going to run out? Like, it doesn't tell you. And I talked about it before, but I think it's worth reiterating. Just functionally switching between photo and video on the R5 is kind of annoying. Having to hit the mode button and then hit the info button, it's not obvious, it's not intuitive, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I find myself constantly hitting mode and then looking on the back of the camera for the info button, because it's like, it's, roughly the same size and shape as all these other buttons right around it. So having to hit that specific button, rather than just being able to twist a wheel or flick a switch like it used to be on the Canon cameras, you just flick into video mode. Like, sure, that's fine. Also, I found out on the R5 that if you're doing any kind of HDMI, the video mode, if you're in video mode, the HDMI is only a clean feed. If you switch into photo mode, that's when you get all the display information, and it's not a clean feed. I think there's some slight little weird things like that are just should be kind of better optimized for people who want the functionality that comes with cameras like the Lumix cameras. Another thing I'll say, audio recording. On the R5, you can record audio, and you can either set it to auto or you can set it to manual, and you can set your levels. But that's about it. There's no other real audio settings for your microphone, whereas on a camera like the GH5, you've got wind reduction, you've got limiters, you've got a lot of like audio functionality in terms of how the signal is processed. It's not just a, do you want auto or do you want to manually set it? You have some additional settings that you may or may not want to activate that can be helpful in certain situations. One thing I like to use on the GH5 is setting a limiter. So if something gets too loud, it kind of rounds out that top end, and I'm not getting, just immediate distortion if it does get too loud. It will peak at some point if it is too loud and drives it, but it at least rounds it out and shapes it. And I think it actually sounds kind of nice. That's actually what you're listening to right now. So if I tend to get a little bit loud, the camera can compensate for that. With the R5, it's pretty bare bones. It's pretty basic and limited. And also with the display and like what it shows you while you're filming, I think a lot of the icons aren't just all that helpful. So there's like, I don't know how to describe this other than just the graphic design of the icons. Like the icon for stabilization is probably the weirdest icon for stabilization I've ever seen. Normally it's like a hand shaking, or it just says IS or something very simple, very clean. The stabilization icon on this is, I wish I had a picture of it and could show you just how weird it is. But that's what I'm saying. It's these weird symbols and displays. And I think just in general, the way the menu system looks like I wish I could show you this on an HDMI feed, but I can't show info via HDMI with this camera in video mode. But like the record button being on the screen is nice, but it looks like it's always recording. The other stuff is just kind of like arbitrarily placed. It doesn't seem meaningful or designed or well laid out. It's just kind of like they put some icons on the screen that may or may not be helpful in certain situations. It's nice that I can see my shutter speed, my aperture, and my ISO, but if you want to see anything else, you have to hit info, and then if all the the histogram stuff, like the histogram, a lot of the stuff will disappear. The level, it'll disappear when you actually start recording. And a lot of that's just really irritating and annoying, and it doesn't make it easy to use. It's not fun to use. It's not smooth and seamless in the same way that, people love the R5 and, Canon cameras for photography because they make taking photos so easy and seamless. They don't seem all that intent on making it as smooth and seamless for video people, which I wish the camera would just do both. Like I have, time and time again on the Lumix camera. I can just switch back and forth between photo and video, no problem. It's easy, it's intuitive, it's smooth and seamless, and it makes it a breeze to use rather than constantly hunting and fighting for stuff. Now, granted, this is just my second day with the camera. I've got a lot more to play around with, to learn, to dive in, to figure out if maybe there are some workarounds, some things, some menu settings that I haven't quite figured out that like maybe will optimize this. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's something I don't know. But I think, one of the best things about most cameras is that if it works kind of right out of the box and it's easy and intuitive to find the stuff you're looking for, or at least going through the menus and you can activate the stuff you're looking for, that's what I do with every camera. I turn it on, I look at the system, I look how it kind of responds and what the display looks like, and then I dive through the menus and I turn on everything that I would want on and I turn off everything that I want off. And right now, the R5 just is in kind of a weird spot. It feels like the video mode is, it's there, it's adequate, you can do things, but you can't do them smoothly, and it should be better just designed. That user experience should be more optimized for how expensive and how professional this camera should be or could be. It's at least a recommendation I would say of like, if you're going to be designing a camera for professionals, treat the photography and the video kind of equally, or at least give them the same care and dedication with like what the icons look like and where stuff is placed and what's available and what you can change while you're recording. It just makes it more fun and enjoyable and easier to shoot with, rather than something that feels like, well, I can, but everything feels like a workaround. Everything seems like I have to figure out another way to do this thing that I'm trying to do because the camera doesn't present it quickly and easily to me. It's the same thing with the overheating modes. There's workarounds, there's ways to avoid it, there's things you can do, but all this stuff is just junk in the back of your brain that you have to know these restrictions and limitations and constantly be making those mental calculations on the fly to figure out, well, how much time do I have left and where's that feature and how much time do I have left in my card and how do I check it? Do I have to flip over to video mode and see? Do I have to go into the menus and check my card, how much time is left? And it's like, I don't want to have to be doing that. I kind of want it there at a glance because that's the stuff that I need time and time again. And it's what I've gotten so comfortable with on cameras like the GH5 and the Ursa Mini Pro that just work, and they just work well, and they give you the information you need to know at a glance, where the R5 just feels like the autofocus works great, the footage looks nice, but there's just so much in the way. And I think that's another big problem for me with the camera. Not just the overheating stuff, we've talked about that, but just the user interface and the experience of using the camera is just not all that great for me personally right now.